What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the Crew 2, and in this video I'm going to take a look at the Chevrolet Camaro Z28 Enforcer Unit. It seems this car actually made its appearance back into the day almost a year later. This thing was in one of the motor passes a long time ago, and I feel like it really was forgotten. I believe I actually only used the car in like one race, and that was basically it. What's kind of insane is I do not remember the car being as good as it is right now. That's probably due to the fact that I never really drove it, but after jumping into this thing in the Summit, guys, I'm honestly mind blown with how good this thing can handle. I would even go as far as saying it's probably going to be on par with the Cadillac Enforcer Unit and even the Mitsubishi WRC05 as well. Like, this thing's going to be that good. It's kind of insane saying that due to the fact that many of the Rallycross vehicles on the Crew 2 I personally feel like are not going to be all that great, and many of them really are forgotten. Like, I really never use any of these vehicles. Even though some of them might be kind of decent in some way, you always find yourself running like the Ford Fiesta. At least I normally run this vehicle anyway, which is kind of odd because even this car is pretty dang good. But if I had to guess though, I would say many players are most likely going to notice the Lancer WRC and the lovely Cadillac Enforcer Unit basically taking over most of the leaderboards. What's kind of interesting is I really don't see the Cadillac used as often as it used to. I would actually say the Mitsubishi is probably the most used rally car in the game. I really can't blame you guys on that though, because not only does this vehicle look awesome, it really does handle and have a great speed to it as well, so it's hard not to pick something like that. I really do feel like many players are probably feeling the same way I am about the Z28, especially after running this thing in the recent Summit. I really cannot believe how good this car actually is, guys. Like, I really do think it's on par with the Mitsubishi and the Cadillac. But nonetheless, though, let's go do an outside look of this vehicle right now, and then let's take this thing on a quick top speed test. And now taking an outside look of the Z28 Enforcer unit, I really do feel like many players are going to love the look of this thing. I really do like the rims and tires, and that big push bumper on the front looks awesome. I also think the lettering does look pretty awesome on the vehicle as well. Just in case you guys might have been wondering, by the way, you can also remove the livery on this thing if you don't like it, but I do think it fits it pretty nicely. Now, the one weird thing about this car, though, is probably going to be that huge wire right there when you guys are driving it. That's obviously for the light, which, by the way, is also insanely bright as well, and depending on the camera angle, you might see that light just a bit too much, but I personally do think it looks pretty nice on here. Not only that, though, this car also sounds pretty awesome. And then moving over to the interior view of the vehicle, you guys are probably going to notice not a whole lot going on here, which honestly I really can't get mad because I love the look of a classic car. I think that's like woodworking on the side there, like some type of vinyl. I also noticed that on the dash by the hands as well, so it does look pretty good. Also, whoever had this vehicle definitely drove it. I believe that's 25,000 miles there, so kudos whoever is driving this thing as a police car, but my goodness, I feel like the overall look of this vehicle is pretty sweet, even though the interior view is kind of plain. But now, besides all that, let's see what the top speed of the Z28 Enforcer unit is actually going to be. So one thing I have noticed about the Rallycross vehicles is the fact that many of them really do seem to have the exact same top speed, or at least very similar to each other. So let's see what the Z28 is actually going to get to. So it looks like it's going to hit around 181 miles per hour. Do keep in mind, guys, if you do go down hills, it might be a tad quicker than that. I believe I got this vehicle, so going crazy speeds like that down a hill are probably not going to be the actual top speed on these vehicles. But luckily, guys, I really would say most of the Rallycross vehicles are insanely balanced when it comes to top speed. I really would say most of the overall, like, I guess, competitiveness with these vehicles is probably going to come from the fact of their handling, which after driving the Z28, I really do feel like this car is going to be a force to be reckoned with because it's going to be that good. So if I had to guess, I would say most players are probably going to be the same way I am with the Z28. I really cannot believe how good this car actually is when it comes to handling. Like, I really was not expecting that at all. I do remember back in the day when this car actually came out, I believe I did like one event with it, and I basically never drove the car after that, and I was kind of like, well, Unfortunately, the Z28 is going to be a lost cause because, it's like a classic vehicle on the Crew 2. It's also going to be a 4-speed, so I was like, you know what? This thing probably cannot compete with other rallycross vehicles, but my goodness, guys, I was definitely wrong on that. This vehicle is definitely going to be something to look at. If you do want something different to drive, I personally haven't driven the Escalade and or the Mitsubishi in a very long time in a no restriction race. I actually have been using the Ford Fiesta, but I do have to admit I'm most likely going to change over to the Z28 for now, and at least see how this vehicle is going to do, especially when competing against those, because my goodness, the Cadillac and the Mitsubishi have been owning the leaderboards for so long. I really do want to see something else actually take over, so I would say one of the biggest talks about this car is going to be the way that it does shift. I really do feel like 4 speeds on the Crew 2 are probably going to be kind of wonky, especially if you guys are driving manual, but luckily the Z28 seems to be very good. One of the biggest things I notice about the 4 speeds, now one thing I do want to mention though, this most likely only goes for the people running manual. I really feel like these cars are going to be kind of okay when you guys are using automatic, but if you are running manual, I feel like you will be finding yourself shifting into the wrong gear, especially when trying to go into a corner and or come out of it. One thing I did notice with the Z28 though is when shifting this car I had no issues with it. It actually really liked to be in third gear around the corners because you can then nitrous out of them. If I was to shift down into second, it's because I was going a lot slower, and the car really didn't seem to fight me all that much with like redlining or like losing power. I noticed if you guys would downshift into second, you had a little bit of RPM left on some vehicles. You would then shift into third and you'd basically lose a lot of power. You then have to hit your nitrous. I feel like that's a lot of the reasons why many players probably don't run those vehicles all that much. Funnily enough, I have been using the GTO the Judge in the Rally Raid class recently. That's also going to be a 4-speed. I've been finding myself really liking it. Even on the recent summit as well this past week, guys, is going to have one very annoying rallycross race in it with so many turns, and for some odd reason I decided to run that vehicle in it. My goodness, probably not the greatest idea, but also I was kind of surprised with it. It actually did insanely good, so I would give these cars a shot if you guys have not. I also really feel like the Z28 Enforcer Unit's going to be a really fun car to try out, and at least it's something different to use. I feel like many players might be kind of tired of using the exact same few cars in each class, so it's always nice to have something different like the Z28 make a return, and it's also going to be a pretty dang good overall vehicle as well. But let me know what you all think about the Z28 Enforcer Unit in the comments below, and I would say this car is definitely going to start showing up a lot more often, especially after the recent summit.